Details of the victory plan named after Volodymyr Zelensky leaked to the press in fragments and through anonymous sources. Fortunately, in terms of information, most presidential administrations today are like a sieve with many holes. Secrets don't just leak from there, they literally gush out. By the time Zelensky arrived in the United States, everyone had commented on this plan except the lazy. Well-known economist Jeffrey Sachs reports that Kyiv demands money and Western weapons, as well as the removal of restrictions on the use of these weapons. In other words, Zelensky essentially wants to start World War III. Even top-tier politicians commented on the plan before being familiar with it.
They say Zelensky criticized my advice on the plan to end the war, but I merely described how it would end. And I don't like that Zelensky comes to my country and tells American taxpayers what they should do. You should be thanking them.
American media were surprisingly unanimous in their assessments of the victory plan, which no one had seen. The American Conservative reports that there is neither a plan nor an algorithm for achieving victory. There is a repetition of regular demands to the West. Meanwhile, implementing Zelensky's proposals threatens a major war between Russia and the United States. The author of American Thinker genuinely fears that if the US approves Zelensky's plan, the conflict will escalate rapidly before the American elections. Putin might unleash a nuclear hammer on Ukraine, as Pentagon military expert McGinnis puts it. Admit it, Zelensky intrigued everyone. The victory plan, even though unknown to anyone, made commentators tremble with fear. Is it any wonder they were all eagerly waiting? When will the plan finally be presented to its only and main reader, President Joe Biden? Will the White House host applaud the document, or toss it into the wastebasket?
Will he enthusiastically approve or skeptically question how Ukraine plans to win this conflict? First, we must strengthen Ukraine's position on the battlefield right now, and I proudly announce a new aid package of 2.5 billion euros. Second, we must help Ukraine succeed in the long term. We have repeatedly stated that we must support Ukraine on its path to the EU and NATO, provided it fights corruption and strengthens democracy.
The problem is that Americans always say the same thing about the Ukrainian conflict. The only difference is that now they have billions approved by Congress, still pending. It would be good to utilize them before Joe Biden's term ends. Under Republicans, funding might simply stop. Additionally, during his visit to the US, Zelensky caused several diplomatic scandals, irreparably damaging relations with many countries and political forces.
The first phase is the UN. The president's speech at the UN is an escalating crisis of relations, a clear crisis with Brazil and China, after which Brazil announced it would hold its forum to gather most of the global south, although it hadn't announced such plans before. This is a reaction to criticism from the president, accusing Brazil and China of offering a colonial plan, essentially proposing only a truce model.
It must be understood that criticizing Zelensky in Ukraine is literally life-threatening. Not just in Ukraine, even abroad, it's dangerous. Just ask Rada Deputy Artem Dmitruk, awaiting extradition in London, blogger Cherished, who was shot at in Catalonia, and former head of the Ukrainian Constitutional Court Tupitsky, who was recently poisoned with mercury in Austria. In general, criticism is permissible, but only of a certain kind.
And you are not the greatest of kings, just remarkable. That's all. Got it? Remarkable, that's all. And you are not deservedly called an honorary saint. You are a hermit, an ascetic, but not a saint. Not a saint, no?
However, a Ukrainian political analyst allows himself much more, predicting disaster. The fact is, during his promotion tour of his plan, Zelensky went to Pennsylvania to a large-caliber shell manufacturing plant. There he expressed support for Kamala Harris and sharply criticized Trump and his vice president. The reaction was immediate. Republicans demanded permission to investigate foreign interference in the elections, and House Speaker Johnson is seeking the recall of Ukrainian Ambassador Markarova. Observers in Kyiv believe Zelensky has desperately gone all in. If the bet fails, like any bankrupt, he will have only one option left.
We bet on Kamala Harris. Our government bet on Kamala Harris. Perhaps it's the price of maintaining support from the White House, I don't know. But if Trump wins, our political system will face a hurricane. With elections without choices, we face a hurricane.
Trump himself didn't delay confirming this. He held a ritual meeting with Zelensky, all the necessary handshakes and compliments took place, but Donald is unlikely to have changed his opinion.
I saw this poor guy yesterday at the United Nations. He didn't know what he was saying. They just don't know what to do. They're trapped in a situation. Sad. They just don't know what to do because Ukraine is no more. It's no longer Ukraine.
It's not Ukraine. So what about the victory plan? It turned out to be a mishap. It turned out it didn't exist. More precisely, it was a phantom constructed by the media, Ukraine supporters, and a bit by Zelensky himself.
We are doing everything possible for Ukraine to win on the battlefield, so that when President Zelensky decides to make a peace agreement, he can do so from a position of strength. The victory plan includes a set of initiatives, steps, and goals that the White House needs to prepare, to study more deeply in the coming weeks.
So it's just a set of initiatives, steps, goals. In other words, not a plan, but rather a disorganized wish list. As schoolchildren say before a birthday, a wish list. Biden promises to discuss all this with Zelensky on October 12th in Germany, if he doesn't forget, of course. Meanwhile, Ukraine is again denied the right to strike with American missiles at targets deep within Russian territory. Money is promised, but it will be given slowly and in small portions. And that's if Republicans don't block the process. Like that poet said, but you must not distinguish defeat from victory yourself. It seems this is exactly the case. There seems to be a plan, but there isn't. And instead of victory, it turned out to be more of a defeat, at least in relations with the global South and Republicans, but possibly with Washington as a whole. Oleg Romanov on the main broadcast.